This video is brought to you by Ground News. When you think of Antarctica, you probably think of an icy white expanse, some idyllic looking mountains, and perhaps a cute little huddle of polar bears and penguins, except you shouldn't think of polar bears as they're only in the Arctic. What you probably don't think about is the imaginary lines in the snow running all the way from the South Pole out into the ocean surrounding the barren landmass, creating 7 pizza slice claims across the continent. Whether you think of this or not though, these pizza slices exist, and each country takes their associated claim very seriously. Here in the UK, the government has gone to the effort of creating a post office, a flag, a commemorative coin, has named a special Antarctic commissioner, and has even given the commissioner the power to set laws for the territory. But why is this? Why have the British gone to such an effort to prove that the area they claim really is theirs? Why have other countries made Antarctic claims? And what does all of this mean for the future? Don't feel overwhelmed by endless news stories. Find out what you need to know every day with TLDR's Daily Briefing. Listen along in your favourite podcast app or by clicking the link in the description. Okay, so to answer all this, we need to have a very small history lesson, starting in 1833. This was the year that Britain, in a completely uncontroversial move that wouldn't have any longer-term repercussions, took control of the Falkland Islands. As anyone with a fairly good grasp of geography will know, the Falkland Islands are located in the South Atlantic Ocean, relatively close to Antarctica, at least in comparison to mainland Britain. As such, it provided the British the opportunity to use it as something of a launch pad to make their Antarctic claims. The first step here was to take control of a bunch of islands a tad closer to the Antarctic continent, naming them things like Graham's Island, the South Shetlands, and the South Orkneys, so everyone knew exactly how British they really were. While they made this claim in 1908, they actually sneakily changed the wording in 1917 to claim any land between these islands and the South Pole, essentially for the first time fully establishing Britain's claim on Antarctica. Now, technically there were previous claims made by the British, but these were handed over to New Zealand in 1923 and Australia in 1933. The point is that, for their part, Britain's claim on their little chunk of Antarctica very much rests on their historic activities in and around Antarctica, and that they were the first to claim this part of the world. In the years, decades and centuries since, they've really tried to demonstrate that this section is unambiguously British. As we mentioned in the intro, the British have established a post office, made a flag, established a governor, created specific British Antarctic Territory laws, and even created coins with a lovely little penguin on. The thing is, not everyone agrees with the Brits. For their part, Argentina claims that they were one of the first to cite Antarctica, and, more importantly, that they were one of the first countries to have a physical presence there. In 1904, 4 years prior to Britain's first claim on the islands surrounding Antarctica, Argentina set up a weather station in the South Orkneys, which was manned by a 6-man team. Then, a couple of months later, the flag of Argentina was officially raised in the Argentine Antarctic sector, and the team went about setting up infrastructure on the island. An observatory was created, making it the oldest permanent human settlement in Antarctica. In fact, the day this settlement was created, the 22nd of February, is so important in Argentina that it's commemorated as the Day of the Argentine Antarctic. Again, like Britain, Argentina are serious about their claim. They have multiple research bases in the territory, they also have their own flag, and they even flew a pregnant woman to their Antarctic territory in 1977 and gave the newborn child Argentine citizenship. Even today, it's illegal to show a map of the country in Argentina that does not show the Falklands, a whole other can of worms, and their Antarctic claim. For the part of Chile, their claim goes all the way back to 1494 and the Treaty of Tordesillas, which gave Portugal and Spain the right to newly discovered territories. They basically drew a line through the world map and said anything to the east would go to the Kingdom of Portugal, and anything to the west would go to the Crown of Castile, which would go on to be part of Spain. Chile now uses this claim to suggest that, as a former member of the Spanish Empire that has a geographical proximity to Antarctica, they should control part of the continent. The part they claim is basically the same that Argentina and Britain claim, leading to this strange 3-way territorial dispute. So, who really gets to claim it? Well, unfortunately for these three countries, their claims mean virtually bugger all. In 1959, 12 nations, including those with Antarctic claims, signed the Antarctic Treaty, which had three main stipulations. That Antarctica will be used for peaceful purposes only, that freedom of scientific investigation in Antarctica shall continue, and that scientific observations and results from Antarctica shall be exchanged and freely available. More relevant to this video, though, is Article 4, which deals with land claims. It basically states that while no new land claims can be made, nor can any territory be expanded, some countries reserve a basis of claim, basically the US and USSR. While the latter might find it difficult to make this claim, owing to a particular world event in 1991. The former could conceivably want to make a claim at some point. On this, it's worth noting that the Antarctic Treaty won't necessarily last forever. In 2048, countries can, for the first time, request a conference to review the protocol. It's possible that a decision will be made to scrap or amend Clause 4, allowing other countries, such as China and Russia, to make a claim. Importantly too, currently few countries actually recognise the territorial claims in Antarctica, so if a change is made, there's nothing stopping new claims being made on existing claims. Now, you're probably wondering why anyone would do this. After all, there's basically nothing there. Why would countries even want to own territory there? Well, it's suspected that there are lots and lots of natural resources there. Research last year suggested that, just in the area claimed by Britain, there's an oil and gas reserve 10 times larger than the entire North Sea output over the last 50 years. And there's a volcano in the area claimed by New Zealand that spews gold dust. Sure, right now it would be too costly to actually get any of that out. But as technology develops, and as the start line for the demise of the Antarctic Treaty approaches, certain countries will look at this and wonder if it will be of any use to them. After all, it's probably not a coincidence that China has stepped up their activities in the Antarctic. It's entirely plausible then that this could become a particularly cold war in the run-up to the 2048 deadline, with powerful countries laying the foundations to their claim. Unfortunately for Britain, Chile and Argentina, it's quite possible that none of them will come out on top. Actually consuming news is pretty difficult in the current landscape. We're increasingly being flooded by misleading content, algorithmic feeds that just back up our biases, and reductions in fact-checking efforts. It almost feels like people are intentionally making it harder to get to the truth. One way you can cut through the noise is with Ground News, a website and app on a mission to give readers an easy, data-driven, objective way to read the news. Every day, Ground News ingests over 50,000 articles from all over the world. Every story comes with a quick visual breakdown of the political bias, factuality, and ownership of the source's reporting, all backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organisations. For example, here's a story relevant to the video. The news that scientists extract the oldest known ice core in Antarctica. Right away, you can see that the story had at least 122 outlets reporting on it. 25% lean left, while 11% lean right. Every story also comes with a detailed view of the bias distribution, factuality scores, and even specific ownership information, so you can see how reliable the reporting actually is. You can also swipe through some of the headlines to get a more detailed understanding of how reporting might change based on political bias. But my favourite part has to be their blind spot feed, which highlights stories that are being underreported on one side of the political spectrum or the other. This not only helps you redress your personal news bias by reading stories you might otherwise have missed, but also gives you a better perspective on how the media ecosystem is being manipulated and shifted to fit political objectives. Ground News is such a useful tool for our current media landscape, cutting through opinion and noise with a feed free from manipulation or algorithms, and I can't recommend it enough. In fact, if you subscribe today, you'll get 40% off their Vantage plan. That's under $5 a month for unlimited access to every incredible Ground News feature. This offer is only available here, so make sure you go to ground.news/TLDR or click the link in the description to get started and support an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.